Coach Teresa Ford here, and this is the Guiding You Home podcast. This is a thought-provoking and often humorous approach to moving you closer to the only one who can genuinely help you live a life of abundance and prosperity. Sound good? Yeah, it's you that needs to go within so you can sit in the driver's seat of your life, co-creating with God. So make room for more light and knowledge. As you continue to listen, you will discover elements of how to lead with your inner light, how to act on your specific promptings, and how to follow your spiritual intuition so you can fulfill the measure of your creation. Thanks for being here, and let's dive in. Okay. By the way, I just wanted to thank you for listening. I think it's so important that we figure out the things that hold us back so we can start doing the things that really make a difference in our lives, that we really fulfill the measure of our creation. And the fact that you're listening to my podcast in particular tells me that you want to know more about how to live a happier life. So I love that. And even if we have to come from a place of having to hold boundaries with people, that's what this episode is about, is holding boundaries when we have toxic relationships. Now, I mentioned that in the last episode on the butterfly principle, and I mentioned the difference between healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships. So if you want a little more clarity on that one, I would go back and listen to episode 13. But in this episode, we're going to get clear on what boundaries are for. So a lot of times people use boundaries against one another, and that's really not what they're for. Yes, they're for toxic relationships. If there are people that are slightly unhealthy emotionally and mentally, or they're really unhealthy emotionally and mentally, then we will need boundaries for sure if we want to keep those relationships and keep you out of toxicity, right? And oftentimes when you're rubbing shoulders with people that are unboundaried themselves and they're really annoyed that you might have some, this episode is going to also help you strengthen those boundaries for the right reasons, because anything that causes us to be emotionally or mentally drained is just extra effort that's not really needed. So if we're spending energy that is not needed because we're using negative energy to keep people out, we're going to be more tired. Heaven knows we don't need to be more exhausted or overwhelmed, right? So this episode is going to help you in a lot of ways, because number one, we're going to save some negative energy and turn it into positive energy. And number two, we're also going to help others get clear on our personal expectations for the relationship, right? So boundaries, I like to compare boundaries to road lines. We're not having to drive down the road in our car with great big walls on both sides of us just so we won't crash into each other. Instead, we have these cute little dotted lines down the middle of the road, or sometimes double lines down the middle of the road, and everybody is able to actually stay on their own side, usually. I mean, clearly there's those moments where people aren't paying attention, but those of us that get driver's licenses, we know the rules of the road. And so pretty much everybody's interested in keeping the rules of the road because it's for your own safety, right? And that's what boundaries are. They're basically keeping everybody safe, even the ones that drive cars without driver's licenses. Those are the toxic people. Those are the unhealthy ones. They don't know the rules of the road. That's why they're just kind of willy-nilly being wild and crazy. So our job is to follow the rules of the road. And clearly you have to know what the rules look like on your own end, or it would be very hard to be boundaried. So boundaries look a lot like having mutual respect. When somebody says they can't make it and you start begging them to make it to an event, that's unboundaried. That's not taking their first answer. It's not showing respect for their wishes. So vice versa. If you're ever like, oh man, I can't make it, and somebody else that you don't want to be mean to them and you don't want to shut them out completely. Maybe they're a family member, so you're still trying to keep the relationship on the up and up, and they're not respecting your boundaries. That's when you need these tools to realize, oh, they're driving a car without a driver's license. They didn't study. They don't know the rules of the road. Then that's okay, as long as they don't crash into my car. And there's some of us that were like, yeah, we don't want them to crash into anyone's car. But clearly we don't have the control to go around protecting everyone, right? We can't actually decide for other people to see these unboundaried people the way you want them to be seen. Does that make sense? So therefore, boundaries are doing what's within your control. So having clear boundaries, understanding the rules of the road that you want to drive by, and also realizing that you can't control anybody else's driving habits, and you can't make them see somebody else's driving habits. You can only be in charge of you. So you're the one that you have control over, and understanding the rules that you want to drive by. That is what you have the power to change, okay? So as you're driving down the road, you're not like, oh, I'm going to go 5 miles an hour just in case somebody isn't paying attention and they cross the middle line and ram into my car. You're not protecting yourself per se. Boundaries are not for promoting hindrance or lack of momentum in your own life. You're not worried about other people going in the opposite direction and opposing the direction you're going in, right? You're not putting resistance out there saying, oh my gosh, I'm so annoyed that those people are driving on the other side of the road and they're not going in the same direction I am, right? That's probably you needing boundaries. If you're upset of what somebody else is doing because your eyes are over there and they're not on your speedometer where you're actually paying attention to the speed limit in your lane, that's you needing boundaries. If you're like, oh my gosh, here comes that blue car again, and you like swerve, you're like, I'm going to make them slow down. I'm going to force them off the road. I'm going to make them do something else. That's you needing a boundary, right? And I'm not talking in the literal sense, because none of us do that on the road, because we know it can end in death, right? We're not talking about literal driving on the road. We are talking about what we do when we interact with other people. We're talking about our own behavior, their behavior, learned behavior, conditioned behavior. We're talking about how to stay in your own lane. When you stay in your own lane, you're managing you, the thing you have power over, right? We're managing your understanding. So we're not pointing fingers at other people's like, oh man, they're driving a blue car. Blue sucks. I like black cars. You know, we're not putting our thoughts focused on other people and what they're doing in the other lane. We're really not even focused on what other people are doing behind us and whether or not they're breaking the speed limit, or they're going too slow, or they're driving with smoke coming out their tailpipe, or they're driving a super old car that it could be a hazard to everybody else on the road. Like, we're not managing all the things that we can't change in the moment. But we do a lot of brain damage like that in our lives. We have lots of energy spent on things and people that we cannot change. So boundaries are just as much for you as they are for somebody else. So the lane you're in, you need to manage yourself, right? We can't go zipping across lanes without checking in our mirrors, right? We gotta play by the rules of the road and regulate our speed according to the amount of traffic. Same thing, you gotta regulate yourself in your life. You gotta stay in your lane, and usually when things are going rather smoothly, you can go 80 miles an hour and you're not freaking out. Can you imagine back in the day when they first came out with the automobile? Have you ever seen those old movies where they didn't really have road rules yet? Everybody's like, look at me, I got a new motor car. And they're like turning, hoping somebody doesn't hit them because nobody knows what yield means yet. There's no such thing as a stop sign. There's just intersections and people are all, running bumper to bumper and they could really only go 3 miles an hour. Like they were going very slow. Nobody was getting anywhere super fast because the chance of running into somebody was high. So the reason we have boundaries is so that we can gain momentum in the direction we want to go. We're staying focused. We have a destination. We're going from point A to point B, and we can do it at 80 miles an hour without fear of running into somebody, right? And the people that are on your side of the road, whether they're driving the way you want them to drive, fast, slow, cutting people off, not using their blinker, whatever, you don't get to manage that. That's not yours. It's wasted energy. But you can keep the boundaries that you need to keep by driving to your destination, following the rules of the road to the best of your ability. That is the equivalent of not letting other people in your life pull you off course. That's the equivalent of not being worried that other people aren't doing what you want them to do for their own sake, for their health, for the sake of what you want them to do, or the potential you see in them and who they could become if they would just change X, Y, and Z. That's a lot of spent energy, and it's exhausting. So the most important thing you can do is just sit back and relax, monitor your speed, and know that you will still reach your destination staying in your own lane, focused on your goals, helping yourself get from point A to point B, because when you get to point B, you're like, nailed it. I'm there. I didn't get pulled off. I didn't allow other people to cut me off or push me off the road. Like my energy was focused. It's like, oh, there's somebody having a hard time and he's gunning it and he's revving his engine, and it's like, okay, that's okay. They can have a hard time. I'm still going to where I want to go. But if we're off in the weeds because we're just so focused on the idiot that's driving too fast, or the idiot that's trying to cut me off, or the idiot that's not blinking, like you are the one that suffers. You got expended energy out the window, and it's negative energy. So what you focus on actually grows. Did you know that? Your energy that you focus on expands. That's why boundaries are important. That you have to have a boundary in your own mind about what you will and won't spend your energy on. So if you're like, yep, not going to let the non-blinker guy in front of me bother me. It's like, oh, he's not using his blinker, okay. But you use your blinker if you believe that you're the kind of person that would use your blinker and notify people around you of your intentions to switch lanes or turn the corner, right? So that's you staying in your lane. Can't manage somebody else's blinker, but you can manage your own. Oftentimes, when we're the ones that need the boundaries, we're not using our blinker, but we're judging other people for not using their blinker. So there's still work to be done in our own lane and manage our own blinker, right? Turning on your headlights when it gets dark, or making sure you use your side mirrors so that you don't, change lanes and push somebody off the road. Like there's just plenty of stuff to be managed on the road, but oftentimes unboundaried mindsets are geared towards wanting to manage everyone else's driving around them, even though you're all going in the same direction. Okay? So that's what you can do to manage your mindset around boundaries and catch yourself having negative emotions or negative thoughts about people around you, people in your life, people in your house. When you're spending negative energy, you are not keeping the rules of your own road. You need a boundary around what you think about so you can stay focused on your mental goals, okay? But say you're going down the road and you're just minding your own business and everything is going great and you're 80 miles an hour and you're not even worried about having a crash and it's just, life is good. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, somebody else crosses the line. And you're like, see your life flash before your eyes and you're suddenly swerving and it's scary, right? When other people try to impede on our happiness, when they try to intervene on our pathway, when they are trying to slow our momentum and cause us to swerve or take another route or even be scared for our lives, we need boundaries. And boundaries aren't big walls. They're not to keep those people out. It's to feed them information about our expectations. So if somebody is habitually crossing over the center line and threatening your happiness, you need to let them know that you're not available for that. But are you doing it with anger? Did you hear my voice? Am I yelling, screaming? No. You're just going to be you, the person that's easygoing, who likes to stay in their lane and have a happy journey. You're letting them know it is no longer something that you'll tolerate for them to cross over the center line. So as an example, your mother is ill, she's home, she's very needy, she's not really following doctor's orders, she's not really taking her medication the way she should, she has a habit of impeding on your schedule and demanding that you come over and help her when it's really not convenient for you, but you do it because it's your mother, you're supposed to be nice, no one else is going to help her, she's kind of toxic to everyone, and so you do. You just go, and this is just a habit. And so you're unboundaried, right? You're unboundaried in your own thoughts because it just drives you crazy because she's really not helping herself. She wants you to care more about her problems than she does, that she's not following the doctor's orders, that she's not doing all these things. And now you're getting mad and you're expending your energy and you've got nowhere for this to go. And so you guys have it out and you're yelling, she's yelling, or maybe you're holding it in and she's yelling and you don't let it out till you have a meltdown because somebody else asked you to do something that wasn't on your schedule and in your plans, and you've just had it. You're tired of everybody taking advantage of you. You're tired of being in the doormat. When those kind of things happen, the demands that other person is making and you giving up your plans for to meet their demands, those are both boundaries that are being crossed, and now you're crashing into each other. You're literally crossing the line. You're crossing into their lane, they're crossing into yours because that energy, that scary, negative energy is happening. That's when it's important for you to say, listen, I can't make it on Wednesday, but Tuesday I can come over and help you out for an hour at 2. That is a boundary. That offers everyone clarity. Did you have to be angry? Did you need to feel put upon? Did you need to dredge up resentment because she always takes advantage of you? Nope. You didn't have to do any of those things. Instead, you could just speak with clarity because it's as easy as saying the speed limit is 80 or the speed limit is 45. It's as easy as saying, see those dotted lines in the middle of the road? Those are to keep you over there on your side where you'll be comfortable and happy going in a different direction than I'm going. It's as easy as saying, see those double lines? Yeah, you don't want to pass my car and I don't want to pass your car when the lines are double. That gives everybody clarity, does it not? Signs on the road that tell you how far it is to your destination, signs on the road that tell you how fast you can go in any particular segment of the road, signs that, understanding simple stuff like the dotted line. You know, you can pass on a dotted line, you cannot pass on a double line, right? Yellow lines, white lines, dotted lines, solid lines, like they all have information, and we don't have to get up in anybody's business usually about the rules of the road. It's the same thing if you're working with toxic people that they say, can you come babysit my kids for a little bit on Saturday? And you're like, I can give you a couple hours on Saturday. And they're like, great, then how about 9 to 3? You're like, no, I don't have 6 hours. I have 2. I can give you 2 hours. And they're like, well, that's not going to work because I need somebody who's going to stay here and watch my kids the whole time that I'm off playing. You don't have to be upset. You don't have to get mad. You don't have to judge them. You can just simply say, I have 2 hours to give you on Saturday. Would you like those at the beginning or at the end of this babysitting need that you have? Does it set a boundary? Yes. Does it hold them to your expectation that they'll hear your boundary? Yes. Will they figure it out? Maybe. Maybe not, but that's not your problem. If they choose not to use your services or accept your gift of 2 hours out of your life, then they could figure out something else. And it's not your job to worry about it. You don't have to take responsibility for other people's emotional reactions. If we are unboundaried, if we've had struggles with boundaries, it's probably because we were taught at some point in our life that we are responsible for other people's emotional well-being. We're responsible for their reactions and for their responses. And sometimes we work really hard to get them to respond in positive ways. We want them to be happy with us. We want them to do what we want them to do. We want them to give up their schedule so they'll come help us out. Or we want them to accept that we have limited time and we can't fulfill the entire request that they're making of us. All of that requires boundaries, but none of it will require heavy, energetic expenditures in anger and negativity. We can do it all on the positive. We can use the power of our voice to be able to make ourselves heard and get clear. We can use the power of our voice to even say, I'm sorry, I have not really heard you say what you need for you, and I would like to make amends. When you tell me you don't have time, I got it. I won't ask more of you in the future. Like, that is healing. That is so helpful for everyone involved. That repairs relationships. When you own your own stuff and you understand that your boundaries were needed just as much as them having boundaries, or that boundaries was brand new, introduced to you and your family, and that this is your new way of being, that you're like, you know what, I don't need to announce anything to them. I'm just going to start acting as though I have boundaries. I have boundaries around my own thoughts and the things that I have the power to change within myself. And I also have boundaries with them. But none of it requires you to block someone. None of it requires you to be angry with someone. That's just something that we were conditioned to believe, that we have to raise our voices and drop the hammer. That's not true. We can be boundaried, and we can also excuse people out of our lives, and we can thank them. Thank them for teaching me what I don't want so I can go do what I do want. And that's what episode 13 was about with the butterfly principle, is we can thank them for what they've taught us. We don't have to include unboundaried people in our lives. We don't have to include people that are toxic to us, that cause us to also maybe veer off our path and become unboundaried in our thoughts. So we have choices. We have personal power. And it's very important that we learn how to use the rules of the road to our benefit. No anger, no road rage, right? We can be happy, easygoing people and get from point A to point B without any deviation at all. But that's what boundaries are for. They're not to keep people out. They're not to hate on people. They're not to block people. They're actually to give you clarity, give you direction, and help you stay focused in the direction you said you wanted to go. So now it's time to go get busy, living, and enjoying your life. Let's go. Thanks for listening. I invite you to leave your feedback and share your aha moments as you listen to this podcast. Also, you can access more information or any of the programs, courses, or worksheets that I've mentioned on these episodes on my website at teresaford.life. Or what I would really love is for you to connect with me on Instagram at teresaford.coaching and on Facebook at Coaching with Teresa Ford, so I can give you more interesting insights and further coaching to help you fulfill the measure of your creation.